Guys of Reddit, what is your worst meeting the dad moment when dating someone new? When you're meeting the dad for the first time, but the dog comes up to you and is super friendly because he already knows you. Awkward. Had a massive poop on hold. We didn't know he was home, so we got in and I dashed to the toilet. 10 minutes later I had destroyed and quarantined the bathroom. When I went out he sees me and comes to greet. I tried to close the door to lock the odor in but I failed. The smell was really bad. I saw his right eye tear up a little. Was invited over to watch Pride and Prejudice with a girl I liked. Why that movie? We were about 19. She stayed with her dad. Met dad and he did typical dad things. Fast forward a few hours and we are in the dark living room on the couch watching the movie. Her legs were on my lap and I was rubbing them when I see a glint to my left by the hallway. Her dad is standing in his boxers holding a big kitchen knife. Everything alright in there, Jen? Yeah dad, she didn't even see him and never believed me when I told her what happened. The first time I was at my now ex GF's place, we each took a piece of fruit when she showed me around. When I finished my banana, I went to throw it away downstairs. Their garbage can was below the sink, so I bent down, and it made quite some noise when I opened it. From the other side of the room comes an angry hey, what do you think you're doing there? As I stand up again I look into an angry dad and stumble up, just throwing away my banana. Double quote. Then he starts laughing. Oh, haha. I thought it was the dog going through the thrash. I couldn't see you. They made fun of that for a long time. I'm female, but I have a story that'll fit. Background: my dad is a very blunt man. Sweet as can be and would give you his last penny, but he's got no filter and will not even pretend to like someone if he doesn't. I had dated this guy in my early 20s, who was a complete D-dash. I was too in love to see it, or even care tbh. The first time he met my parents, my mom, the ever sweet southern debutante, was nice to him. My dad not so much. Mom and ex were talking, and mom notices that dad is leaned back in the chair sleeping. She wakes him up to tell him how rude he's being. My dad said might be rude, but I don't like that boy. Not gonna talk to him. Got nothing to say. Then friggin' went back to sleep. I was mortified. Dad loves my spouse though. Girl's father was in a wheelchair, but was built very well. He obviously lifted as much as he could from his confines. Girlfriend warned me he previously tried to break a guy's hand upon meeting him and shaking his hand. So, I went to meet him. He stuck his hand out to shake mine. I didn't hesitate. I shook his hand. He looked at his daughter as if to say if you weren't here, I'd totally snatch his hand off his wrist. Then he started giving me the talk about dating his daughter. He ended it with telling me about his .45 in a shelf. I really wanted to answer with this shelf right next to me, but across the room from you? But I decided against it. Apparently while we were out, her parents ransacked her bedroom and found our notes that we had written back and forth. I wrote words like it and ass, so they forbade her from seeing me again. I had been dating this girl for about 3-4 months and it was time to meet her family. We made arrangements and went over for dinner. He was nothing short of a ducking prisoner. I still refer to him as the prisoner. The entire night he barely spoke, and when he did it was only after being directly prompted by his wife or daughters, and it was always one-word answers. The entire dinner was them making jokes at his expense, making fun of him while simultaneously spilling the beans on intimate, personal details of his life. His wife treated him with absolute contempt and disdain, which was translated into how his daughters treated him as well. The only living thing in that house that had any affection for him was the cat. This man spent 30 years working his ass off as a civil engineer to raise a family. His wife never worked a day in her life. Before or after him, he put 2 daughters through college, paid their ducking rent, on top of paying for their cars and basically everything else. And they treated him like a malfunctioning robot butler. His eyes were completely dead, like a lion who's been in the zoo too long. It scared the ducking it out of me, so I broke up with her about a week later. It was like a visit from the ghost of Christmas future. I would like you to meet my dad. Shows me an urn. Just now realizing that every girl I've ever dated hasn't had a dad. WTF. Please let me give you a tour of the house. First stop, my gun collection. As a teenager I met my GFS at the time's dad and we had same pair of shorts on. Dad shorts. He was cool, but the fact that I was banging his daughter really seemed to bother him. Understandably. Luckily he liked MMA as well, so we bonded over that. I had a Filipino GF in college. Decided to meet the parents. I drove around 3 hours to meet them, and even brought flowers and stuff. When for the first time in their life, they decide to practice a tradition of rejecting the BF 3 times before accepting him. The point is that if you really want their daughter, you'll try as many times as it takes. And since they had never done it before, my GF didn't think about warning me. I was pretty damn annoyed when they tossed my flowers right into the garbage. My girlfriend's stepdad was at work, so we were in her room watching TV on her bed. We weren't hugging, just holding hands sitting next to each other because of the way the bed is sat. I hear him arrive home downstairs, and about 10 minutes later when I least expected it, a man who's a little shorter than me but a lot more bulked out, slams open the door, with his arm already extended like a ducking Cyberman from an old Doctor Who episode, shouting, "Hello Laflux, how are you?" I thought it was some act done to intimidate me, and it real did make me nervous. After a few months of knowing the guy, I know it was out of nervousness. It's not as bad as others here, but the sudden abruptedness made me almost it myself. LPT, avoid this by dating a sibling. My boyfriend was so nervous that he forgot to wear shoes. Showed up at her house unexpectedly at 11 PM. He was in bed. Once I was let in by her brother, he went and woke dad up to meet me. 2/10 experience. Don't wake a 250-pound Puerto Rican as a first meeting while dating his youngest daughter. I'm about to meet the dad this weekend. Let's hope I have nothing to post come Sunday. Update, not dead. Meeting dad went really well. Also met mom and GF's twin older brothers. Dad must have liked me because he asked me to help with fixing something on GF's car. And I even got a hug from her mom. In 2005 I took a train to Connecticut to meet my college girlfriend's family. She picked me up from the train station, and when we got to the house, I had to pee really bad. Trip from Philly to Hartford was like 4 hours, so I figured I'd run to the potty before I would meet the family. She told me to use the bathroom upstairs BC, they were renovating the downstairs one. Open the door, there's her dad pooping. While in high school a girl and were making full use of the living room since her parents were gone for the day. At one point we're just kinda laying naked on the couch between rounds and we hear the door open, so we throw a big ass blanket over ourselves. In walks her dad, who greeted us. He had heard of me but hadn't met me, and proceeded to watch the movie we had on as background noise with us for another hour, all the while we're just naked under a blanket on the other couch. My high school girlfriend missed a week of school because she had pharyngitis. One day I went over to bring her some stuff from her locker and thought it would be funny to walk in wearing a surgical mask. I stood outside the house tying it around my head when her very tall and stocky father came out and asked me who I was and what I was doing. I told him I was the new BF and thought it would be funny to wear a mask. He wasn't amused and neither was my GF. Jackie, I know you read it. If you're reading this, I still think it was funny. Not knowing what potatoes are. First time I met my fiance registered sign-s dad, I drank all his beer and drunkenly called him a homo. It's never been brought up, so I think I'm good. The dad was an ex-army ranger. He made me do yard work while the girl stayed inside. He started a fire to burn trimmed tree branches and started the "say you like my daughter" speech. That was fun. First time I went to my ex's house, a dog greeted me at the door before anyone else arrived. He then proceeded to hump my leg, and when I would smack him off he would bite my fingers. So when her dad came to answer the door, I was just standing there dead-eyed while a little blue heeler humping the duck out of me. The dad was a huge guy, probably 6 feet 5 inches at least, and super ripped. When I first met him he was wearing no shirt and basketball shorts. He introduced himself as the leader of the local Hells Angels chapter and said, "If anyone in town starts anything with you guys, tell them you are with me." He was actually a nice guy most of the time unless he was drunk. I've heard stories before meeting him, so when I seen him it was scary. He actually was really nice and made everyone spaghetti for dinner. Before I met my wife, I was dating an Aussie woman. Since I was working in Australia at the time, we'd shared some info about our past relationships, flings, you know, normal getting to know each other type stuff, gauging what sort of life experience the other person has had. As it turns out, my last serious long-term relationship was with a black woman, and for some really messed reason, she ended up telling her father, who works as a long-distance truck driver. Did I mention that she was nuts? So what were his first words upon meeting me? "I hear you used to shag a darkie." Yup, I think with that one sentence, I pretty much grasped the attitude of the entire family to a wide variety of social and racial demographics. I actually was dating a girl for a long time. We had done all sorts of depraved sex acts together. Once I went to visit after not having seen her in some time. Unfortunately, her parents were both hardcore televangelist people. So the mom literally sat us down and explained this is a Christian house and basically said no sex stuff allowed. But horniness is hard to overcome. The GF and I started watching a movie together and touching a little. And I thought, maybe if we're quiet and we make it quick. Then suddenly her dad shouted my name from the hall. I walked out and he proceeded to reiterate this is a Christian household and if we want to do what we want to do, get a hotel. I proceeded to have blue balls for the duration of the visit. First family dinner together. Grandma is in US for 75 years but never learned English. Stares at me sternly, then rattle off in Italian while pointing a gnarly finger at me. Dad rattle back. What did she say? Dad eating. Without looking up. She likes your shirt. All laugh but me. The first time I met my GF's dad, I tried to shake his hand and introduce myself all serious and respectful like. He grabbed my hand and half shook it without even once looking at me. I thought he was the world's biggest D. 6 years later I'm engaged to his daughter and he and I are pretty damn close. He's paying for me to go to Disney World next year with him and his family for his older kid's wedding, lol. Not me, but when my one friend's daughter started seriously dating a man, we decided to have some fun. This is a big Italian family, so we had his brothers-in-law and his father and his best friend and some other friends, most of whom were big guys. We set up the kitchen chairs in a semicircle with one more chair in the center. All of us sat down in the chairs and called in the boyfriend. The father told him to take a seat and then said, cracking his knuckles, "What exactly are your intentions toward my daughter?" Then we couldn't keep straight faces. So we all laughed and had drinks. Edit. Had more drinks. Not me, but my friend's little brother had finally found the love of his life. These two ducking lovebirds were a match made in heaven. I think months had gone on and he ended up over at her parents for dinner. I think they were both in their mid-20s. The story told is that the girl's wild-eyed stocky little uncle grabbed my buddy by the throat and slammed him in the wall about 2 seconds after shaking his hand in a very pronounced effort to discourage him from becoming that guy who broke her little heart. Anyways, I think dinner that night was a tad awkward. This was about 5 years ago maybe. Anyways, the couple is still going strong. And I never heard of any other incidents to follow.